My billionaire father stood up at my wedding and disowned me in front of hundreds of guests. He said I would never inherit a single dollar because I chose to marry an aircraft mechanic instead of the wealthy businessman he had picked for me. The room filled with laughter. My mother looked away, and my sister recorded every second, expecting to capture the most humiliating moment of my life. Then my husband looked my father in the eyes and quietly said 4 words: "We do not need it." 6 months later, those same people watched my father's $1 billion empire begin to collapse when they discovered the mechanic he had mocked was actually the billionaire CEO he had spent 2 years begging to do business with. This is the story of how the daughter my father called a disappointment became the woman who proved that real success is earned, not inherited. I grew up in one of the wealthiest families on the Carolina coast. My father believed every relationship was a business deal, and when I refused to marry the wealthy man he had chosen for me, he cut me out of the family. Instead, I married Owen, a humble aircraft mechanic who treated me with more respect than anyone in my own family ever had. At our wedding, my father publicly announced that I would receive no inheritance, no trust fund, and no place in the Porter family ever again. He called my husband nothing more than a grease stain on our family name. Instead of arguing, Owen simply smiled and replied, "We do not need it." After the wedding, my father canceled every financial connection I had. Friends disappeared overnight, and my family expected me to come crawling back. Instead, I focused on growing my engineering career while Owen quietly supported me. Around the same time, I discovered my late grandfather had secretly left me his machine shop, company shares, and royalties from an engineering design I created years earlier. My mother had hidden those documents from me because they would have made me financially independent. While my father prepared to open his $1 billion luxury resort, he was desperately trying to secure a partnership with Meridian Aviation, a company whose mysterious chairman refused to meet anyone in person. What my father never realized was that the chairman he had been chasing for 2 years was Owen. To make matters even sweeter, I was hired as the structural engineer responsible for approving the resort's signature overwater pavilion. The same daughter my father refused to support had become the engineer whose professional approval his biggest project required. I completed my work honestly because my integrity mattered more than revenge. On opening night, 500 investors, politicians, and business leaders gathered to meet Meridian Aviation's legendary chairman. When the announcer introduced him, Owen walked onto the stage. The room erupted into applause. My father's face turned pale. The mechanic he had publicly mocked at my wedding was actually one of the most successful businessmen in the aviation industry. After Owen finished speaking, my father rushed over, hoping to save their business partnership. Owen calmly refused, explaining that Meridian would never partner with someone who publicly humiliated his own daughter for choosing love over status. Then my father turned to me, accusing me of humiliating him. I quietly held up my grandfather's brass calipers and reminded him of one simple truth. The man who built our family's success had also been a mechanic. My father had spent years pretending he was above the very people who made his fortune possible. Before I walked away, I gave him one final reminder. The overwater pavilion everyone admired that night stood safely because I had approved every structural detail. The engineering degree he once called a hobby had become essential to the success of his greatest project. The videos from my wedding quickly spread across the internet beside the news revealing Owen's true identity. Investors questioned my father's leadership. Business partners backed away, and the reputation he had spent decades building began to crack. Months later, my father came to my home alone and apologized for the first time in his life. I told him that forgiveness would not come from one conversation, but from years of changed behavior. Whether he earned that chance was up to him. Today, my engineering firm continues to grow through honest work. Owen still spends weekends repairing airplanes because success never changed who he was. Together, we built a life that depended on neither my father's fortune nor his approval. Looking back, I realized something my grandfather had tried to teach me all along. An inheritance is something someone gives you. Self-worth is something you build yourself. Money can disappear. Family names can be taken away. But the knowledge you earn, the character you develop, and the life you build with your own hands can never be stolen. In the end, my father didn't lose his fortune. He lost the daughter who spent years trying to earn a love that should have been unconditional. And I finally discovered that the greatest revenge is living a life where you never needed their approval in the first place.